Look, cursed dolls are creepy and all, but go back in time a few hundred years and anything from trumpets to dirt could bring about death and destruction. One thing's for sure, Annabelle's got nothing on a centaur werewolf. History's coldest case might be who killed Ötzi the Iceman. In 1991, a freakishly well-preserved corpse was stumbled upon by a couple of surprised hikers in the Italian Alps. Archaeologists and forensic people swooped in and did their stuff. They figured out Ötzi died around 5,300 years ago, and facial reconstruction showed us what he looked like. In 1998, his body was put on display at the South Tyrol Museum of Archaeology, but the investigation continued. And in 2001, an X-ray revealed a flint arrowhead deep in Ötzi's left shoulder and signs of severe head trauma. That's right, Ötzi was murdered. Who did it and why? We'd need a TARDIS to figure that out, but here's where it gets weird. Between 1992 and 2005, 7 people connected to Ötzi were said to have been done in by a curse. One of the hikers who found him died from a fall during a freak blizzard. The forensic pathologist who helped remove the body from the Alps died in a car crash. And the journalist who filmed the removal of Ötzi's body, he died from a brain tumor.
I curse you. You will bring bad luck to everyone you love.
Curse talk is all creepy fun and games if you're not on the receiving end. But when one of the scientists who analyzed Ötzi's DNA was found suddenly and inexplicably dead in 2005, his colleagues flipped out on reporters who wouldn't stop badgering them about the curse. So far, those colleagues are still alive, but they've got to at least be a little bit worried. On the night of April 14, 1912, the Titanic hit an iceberg and sank to the bottom of the North Atlantic. Historians would have you believe that this was due to bad planning and poor leadership. But what if it was actually due to the cursed mummy that was on board the supposedly unsinkable boat? One that had already brought death and ruin upon everyone who came in contact with it. That theory would be more convincing if the unlucky mummy was actually a mummy, or, and this is key, had actually been on the Titanic. Details matter. But the so-called mummy is actually a painted board from inside a sarcophagus. Despite there being no truth to the story whatsoever, this legend is so prolific that the British Museum addresses it at length in their official description of the item.
It's not what it looks like.
How do they have it if it sank to the bottom of the ocean, you might ask? Yeah, well, that never happened. When the Titanic went down in 1912, the painted board, formerly known as the Unlucky Mummy, was sitting safe and sound at the British Museum. Around 1785, an ancient Roman ring made of gold was discovered in Hampshire, England. Etched around the band of the ring are the words Senechianus, live well in God. While the exact details of how and when it was found are unknown, whoever found it sold it to a rich local family who dug history. It remained in their collection of artifacts for centuries and was eventually gifted to the National Trust with the family's estate. So where did the curse talk come from? Well, decades after the ring was discovered, an ancient Roman curse tablet was found about 80 miles away. The tablet reads, "To the god Nodens, Silvianus has lost a ring. Among those who bear the name of Senechianus, to none grant health until he bring back the ring to the temple of Nodens." Historians connected the ring to the curse, and it became known as the Ring of Silvianus. Regardless of whether the curse ever zapped anyone named Senechianus, it may have inspired one of the most famous cursed rings in literature, J.R.R. Tolkien's One Ring. You bet it is. The ring that causes so many problems in Middle-earth may have been based on this real-life one. In fact, it's highly likely, because 2 years before he published The Hobbit, Tolkien, who was a professor of Anglo-Saxon at Oxford, was called in to research the name of the god Nodens, mentioned on the tablet. So while some may call the ring cursed, it was definitely lucky for Tolkien, and plenty of Middle-earth fans who came after. The small carved rocks that became known as the Hexham Heads might be ancient. And again, they might not be. While the Celts did leave behind carved heads similar to the wee Hexham ones, experts haven't been able to assign a date to these. What we do know is that the pair of heads were found by 2 boys in 1971 near Hadrian's Wall. Almost immediately, people with even a passing connection to the heads began getting terrifying visits. One of the boys' neighbors, a researcher who studied the artifacts, and even the researcher's young daughter all said they saw a werewolf-like creature in their homes after they came into contact with the heads.
It was half animal and half man. The upper part, I would have said, was a wolf.
So think of this like a centaur werewolf. Kinda. Anyway, in 1976, the BBC covered the story about the heads and seriously freaked out many young children who saw it. The last reported werewolf sighting in England was in 2016. One of the most famous curses of all time involves the ancient Egyptian boy king Tutankhamun.
Who
is this Tut? What's so special about this Tut? Did you see Tut? Should I see Tut? What kind of name is Tut?
Many people believe Tut's burial chamber is one of history's most cursed tombs. A lot has been written about the people who supposedly died sudden deaths due to their connection to the opening of King Tut's tomb. But less well known is a set of trumpets found there that came with their own special curse. The trumpets of Tutankhamun aren't the flashiest items from his tomb. One is made of silver and the other is of bronze. Both came with wooden mutes. But while the curse on the tomb itself seemed to only kill random individuals, the power ascribed to the trumpets is far greater. It's said that every time they've been blown since their discovery, a war has begun, summoned by the sound of the instruments. This claim is backed up by statements from no less than Egyptologist Hala Hassan, curator of the Egyptian Museum's Tutankhamun collection. The trumpets were stolen along with several other items during the 2011 Egyptian Revolution, and when they were recovered a few months later, Hassan said that a museum staff member had blown one of the trumpets just a few days before the revolt. He claimed this also happened before wars began in 1967 and 1991, and the BBC was, perhaps foolishly, allowed to record the sound of the trumpets in 1939, shortly before the beginning of World War II. Thanks, BBC. In other words, please don't blow the trumpets. Pompeii is one of the most famous dark tourism sites in the world. People come in droves to see the place where a town was completely buried under the eruption of nearby Mount Vesuvius. While the site naturally has a gift shop, some unscrupulous visitors want a more authentic souvenir and take the liberty of pocketing rocks, pieces of pottery, walls, mosaics, and other small and seemingly insignificant ancient debris found while touring the location. But many of them come to regret it. It doesn't appear to be the actual artifacts in Pompeii that are cursed, but rather the act of stealing that draws down the wrath of the gods. Hundreds of tourists have sent back small items pilfered from the ruins, along with notes that they've suffered bad luck ever since. The site's archaeological superintendent Massimo Alzana told the Italian Tribune, they write that the stolen pieces have brought them nothing but trouble. They say they can trace back all their family troubles to their theft at Pompeii. Some of the troubles blamed on the thefts include breast cancer, financial difficulties, and broken bones. Others reference general bad luck or supposed curses that have affected whole families. And some of the pilferers say they never experienced any negative effects but heard that others had, so they sent back the things they took just in case. Wise move. Many have heard of Pele's curse, which says that if you take small lava rocks, also called Pele's tears, sand, pumice, or anything similar from Hawaii, you'll have bad luck. It's even more cursed than the tiki idol the Brady Bunch found there once.
Bad luck? Come and get me.
According to Hawaiian legend, the goddess of fire, Pele, lives in a volcano and never actually threatened anyone who took her lava rocks with a curse. In fact, the whole idea of a curse is far more of a Western concept than a native Hawaiian one, because native Hawaiians would be expected not to move a rock without permission out of respect for the island. Despite this, the legend of the curse is widespread. Why? Don't tell anyone, but talk of bad luck is a good way to make tourists behave. Tourists who visit Hawaii Volcanoes National Park are constantly taking little pieces of it back home. To be clear, it's illegal to take anything from a national park, but that doesn't stop people. So a guard started telling people that if they brought lava rocks home with them, they'd be cursed by Pele. The story can be traced back as far as 1946, and guidebooks today run with the idea. So many people are now aware of the curse that every year thousands of pounds of rocks and sand are mailed back, often with letters blaming the rocks for everything from losing a business to jail sentences to bad relationship breakups. The Lydian Hoard, also known as the Karun treasure and the Croesus treasure, was a massive haul of 363 priceless artifacts from the ancient kingdom of Lydia, located in modern-day Turkey. The loot came from graves taken by literal grave robbers in the 1960s. They plundered burial mounds and illegally removed what they found. The men involved eventually sold all of it to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, who put several dozen pieces on display in the 1980s, despite knowing the items were stolen. At first, the museum tried to hide the sketchy origins of the hoard.
Well, it wasn't me.
Well, it wasn't me.
They were eventually found out and returned the 219 pieces in their collection to Turkey in 1993. Turkey is still trying to claw back the remaining pieces for their museums. But based on the alleged curse attached to the hoard, they might not want it all. The story of the terrible fates that befell the men who originally took the items is super melodramatic. It includes deadly farming accidents, decapitation by a jealous husband, being blinded by spices, prison sentences, insanity, cancer, paralysis, and much more. One thing that definitely happened is that once the pieces were back in Turkey, the museum's director sold off a particularly impressive item to pay off his gambling debts, replacing it with a fake. He was caught and sentenced to 13 years in prison, and of course, blamed the curse for all of it, which is just good marketing. The good news is that the gold of Tolosa isn't around anymore to cause people problems. The bad news is that it's going to cause everyone a whole lot of problems if it is ever found. The gold hoard is said to originally have been stolen by the Gauls from Delphi in Greece in 297 BC. But when they returned home to an area of what is now France near Toulouse, they discovered that since they pilfered the treasure from a holy place, the gold was cursed. To escape the curse, which was already making people sick, the Gauls decided to throw it all in a lake. Problem solved. Except not. As the story goes, ancient Romans found the sunken treasure when they invaded Gaul. The Roman general Quintus Servilius Caepio brought it back up, and his battalion tried to bring it back to Rome. But thanks to the curse, none of them made it home except for him, and he died in disgrace and with no male heirs. As for the treasure, it has seemingly disappeared. It isn't known where the gold is today, but the curse is believed to live on. The Italians have a proverb that translates to, "He has the gold of Toulouse," which means someone has possession of something they shouldn't. An infamous future seer Nostradamus predicted that its rediscovery would bring a disaster, writing in part, "In Toulouse, making a deep pit, a found treasure will upset everyone." That obviously makes the curse legit. So if you find yourself in Toulouse, enjoy yourself. But please, for the love of God, refrain from digging.